Hi, Sudesh. How are you?
Hi Girija, how have you been?
Yeah, I've been good. Thanks so much for doing this for me. I know you're used to doing all the interviewing with all the Bollywood artists and Tamil cinema artists and everyone else. But I'm really feeling lucky to interview you this time around. And
Oh
yeah,
wow, it's so good to see you too, Girija. It's been years, so it's so good to see your face. I
yes,
think we last met in Chennai a couple of years ago.
that's right. It's been a couple of years, hasn't it? So, Satish, tell
Yeah.
us about you. I don't think you need an introduction with many people, but tell us about you and what you
What
do
I
and
have,
yeah, what you do.
like the basics, like I've been a film
Who
critic,
are you?
I've been a filmmaker, that kind of
Mm.
stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Tell us about you.
Yeah, all right. So I've been a journalist and film critic since 1995. I think my first review was Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. I was in first year of college back then, and been reviewing ever since. I took a break from the Hindu to like chase my dream and like make movies. So I moved to Bombay like 11 years ago. I have since, in the last 25 years, made five feature films, including my retro love trilogy, which is Good Night, Good Morning, Side A, Side B, and Culture Vulture.
Okay. And I met you how many years ago? 20 odd years ago, I think. And
Oh,
this
you met me first, you mean? Yeah, in
yeah,
2004, over 20 years.
yeah,
But you were
2004.
familiar with my script. I think we met because you had read my script, and that's how we became friends.
That's right, because I was the only one who would give you proper comments
You were
back
the only
then.
one who liked it.
I was lying.
You were
No, it
the
was a
only
joke.
one
It
who
was a
liked it.
joke.
Even we didn't like it. But we
No,
were like,
no.
okay, Girija likes it. Maybe there's something in it.
No, there was. There
But
was a
we were
lot of.
wrong.
That's not true. The four-letter word had a lot of
There
heart.
was nothing in it.
It had a lot
In
of heart.
fact, well, the guy who remade it in Gujarati might not agree because he remade it in Gujarati, and it's on Prime Video right now, the Gujarati version of it.
Really?
Um,
What's it called?
yep, yep. It's
What's
called
it?
Pela Adi Akshar.
Pela Adiakshi. You're gonna have to message me that one. I want to watch it because,
Okay.
yeah, see, I approve
Oh,
that
you want to watch it?
script.
You want to see that whole little world, and you want to see the Gujarati version? You are a
I
true fan,
do.
Girija.
I am a
Nobody
true
in the
fan.
world will watch both movies, especially if they've seen
No,
one.
you know what it was? It was the first time I got an insight into the lives of the younger generation without Tamil cinema interfering and all the sentiments of Tamil cinema interfering. And
All right.
that's I think that's what I really kind of took to with that script and saw some a real potential in it. If you were to remake it
Yeah,
today, I'm sure it'll be done correctly or, properly.
I I genuinely believe a script is only as good as the writer, and you
Morgan
have
wrote
to
that
figure out
one.
what the problem is. My co-writer was a dipshit.
Oh, yeah, your co-writer has already been on this podcast. And yeah, I'm sure he'd like that you said it. And
I
perhaps
did
it's
tell him. In fact, I did tell him. I just met him a few weeks ago, and I told him I finally figured out what was the problem with that four-letter word. The problem was it had such a shitty writer, and I'm only as good as my co-writer. And like I was working with you, and you don't know shit, man. Like so that's why it's bad. I was just
poor
giving him a
guy.
hard time about it, but yeah,
Poor guy. No, no, I did definitely see heart in that project. And look, it is the four-letter word, right? How could you go wrong with that?
yeah,
Now, why have I invited you to do this with, me here? Let me explain it. So this is Shastram, a Shastram podcast that I've kind of developed. It's called Sringaram. Sringaram is a concept that is supposed to be the essence of a Indian classical dancer. All right. So there is this absolute love within ourselves, or we're supposed to feel this absolute love within ourselves, and that's supposed to ooze out into the audience and connect us all as we perform. So I went in this whole journey of trying to understand what Sringaram is. How do you create this idea of Sringaram and absolute self-love? And it really went into what I believed in, who I was, what I believed in as what love was. All these sorts of things. And then I kind of started thinking, okay, what are the things that have influenced me in creating these ideas of love? And obviously, one of the things, major things, has been Indian cinema. Like what is love and what is a love story supposed to look like? What is the man supposed to do? What is the woman supposed to do? What are, all of our roles and um yeah, so I thought let's have a chat about that with this one guy who I know has just kind of drank ate that for since I know him, I feel.
Well, yeah, you're true. The cinema does become like one of the most formative experiences of our life when we think about love and relationships. And what we take for granted is that we start believing that whatever is on screen is true and is a life truth, whereas the reality could be very different. Like recently, Karan Johar said in his interview that there's ek baar jeete hain, ek baar marte hain. Is not true, but at that point in time in life, he believed it
What does
because
that
he was
mean?
young
Sorry,
and
I don't know Hindi, so you're gonna have to explain that to me. What does that mean?
so in that the line is one life, one love. We live once, we love once,
Right. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So he said that's not true. He knows that today it's not true, but when he wrote it, he thought it's true
Yeah.
because he was young.
Yeah.
So a lot of these thoughts we get as young people are not necessarily true,
Mm.
but because we have the privilege to amplify it, especially not us, like but at least the mainstream guys who have the privilege to amplify it,
Mm.
um, if they make an entertaining movie, people start believing that that is love. That is how love is supposed to be, even if
Yeah.
it has inherited a lot of the patriarchal constructs. And we're talking even about the film that,
100%.
like, even if it's about Kuch Kuch Hota Hai,
Yeah.
he doesn't like her when she's a tomboy. He only likes her when she's more Indian and in a sari, right?
Yeah.
So,
Feminine.
of course, he's
Feminine.
now a different guy. He's a different
Yeah.
guy now. Now I'm sure he would laugh at it himself. He ridicules it himself. So what I've realized as a critic over the years is that not everything we see in the movies is a life truth, and not necessarily to be, it's not necessarily aspirational, I would say.
Yeah. And I think like as we were growing up, back in the day, nowadays obviously films have changed and there's a different exploration of what love is, what lust is, and the separation of the two as well. That's being explored. But back in the day it was all like this absolute love and this guy had to just turn up and then this girl turns up and she's the most beautiful and he's the most handsome and the most popular and and those two people get together and the rest of us can just fall down and die really. you know so what
Is
did
your podcast a PG-13 or like an adult one?
it's everything, you go for it. I can censor this one.
Well, Indian cinema has been pretty prudish.
Yeah,
It's been
100%.
pretty
Yeah,
prudish historically. So, like, with the flowers doing that, and then finally the Mallika Sherawat came on screen, and like, she did some 21 cases or like 30 cases, and then someone had to normalize kissing on screen. That's
yeah,
how bad it was for Indian cinema, right? Like,
yeah,
because even kissing was considered bad.
yeah,
And how long has it been since Mallika's been around, right? Like, that's barely been, like, we're talking about 20, 25 years or so.
yeah.
So Indian cinema has been pretty prudish, setting
Mm,
unrealistic definitions and standards for what is love,
yeah,
completely discounting the sexual part of it, the physical part of it, which is one of the most important aspects of chemistry and whether people can live together or not. Like, you meet a lot of married couples and they tell you that their marriage stop working when they stop having
mm,
sex.
yeah,
And if our cinema does not talk about sex, if sex is not considered an important thing in
mm,
relationships, then we tend to fall for the wrong ideas of what we think is love without understanding that at some level we are all like, primal.
mm, yeah,
We need the sense of security, we
yeah,
need that sense of,
mm,
love, and that includes the physical part of it, like the physical
yeah.
part of love.
It's interesting that you bring that topic up because I feel like cinema, or I read this book called Cellulite Classicism. Okay, and so if we're talking about Indian classical dance, for instance, right, and the songs that we dance to in that particular, in Indian classical dance, there is so much sensuality in it, but it has been covered as something called bhakti. The thing is this: Indian classical dance was censored And that was, say, the original form of entertainment. Like women, if you look at the temples and how women are portrayed and how all of that's
Yeah.
portrayed, it's very confusing for someone like
They've
me to
been made to
see
cover
that.
up over the years. They've been made to cover up
Yeah.
quite a bit.
And
It
they,
just got more and more stringent.
yeah, so in this book that I read, it actually talks about how cinema was used to create this culture, which was not originally Indian, but more towards Victorian ideals. And how, like, even actual, what do you call it? Indian classical dance specifically was used to portray women in a certain way, in a more kind of less sensual way. And there were songs such as Nalla Penmani, even Nalla Penmani, and like, this is what she does, and this is what is expected of her. And these were things that were actually enforced into society through cinema itself. So,
There could be some truth to it because if you look at the origin of cinema and where it came from, like 1888 or like the first horse GIF, and then went on to the George Méliès painting using hand painted frames to create cinema, to like Chaplin doing his thing and all that. But in India, what we were doing is we were looking at mythologicals because we didn't have existing scripts. So we were basically taking our myths and trying to put them on screen. And because those myths had a lot of musical elements in it, especially songs, they started using songs after the talkies. That is, when they needed sound, they started using gravitating towards the texts, the mythical texts, right?
yeah,
So we were under British rule back in the day,
correct, correct.
and the
They messed it up
Cinematograph
for
Act
us.
was yeah, and the Cinematograph Act was the form of censorship that dictated all Indian things that had to be exhibited. So
Uh-huh.
obviously there would have been a Victorian era hangover in the Cinematograph Act.
Hmm.
I don't remember when it was, 1852 or something like that. It was like a long time ago.
So it's really interesting how, yeah, you're talking about mythology and how I feel also I feel a lot of mythology has been censored. Because even if you look at like the Shiva Purana and things like that, it's again pretty hardcore how Shiva is portrayed. And even,
Yeah.
if we look at the story of how Ayyappan was conceived, just go look it up, and you'll kind of figure out. I'm not going to say anything, but
Okay.
you will see that mythology even has been, had tampered with in terms of what is presented to all of us. But also this idea of like, yeah, patriarchal, having that patriarchal sort of a viewpoint in how we present our heroes. Like it's almost like the gods have descended and become heroes. That was kind of the first portrayal of Indian men, this man who can do anything and everything and is this macho and can slay everybody and is godlike. T t Talk to me about that. Like what are your thoughts on it? So we're talking about our Amitabh Bachchans and our even
How
our
depends
MGRs
on how
and
back. No,
uh,
it goes way beyond that. Like I think it, like how much back in time do we want to go,
or
right?
as much as you want.
Um, Look at the earliest myths, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata.
Yeah.
All right, or
Yeah.
look at, like, even if you don't want to look at that, like if you want to go to the Vedas, look at the Vedas.
Mm.
If you look at how the Vedas begin, they start off with like thanking the sun god, the moon god, the stars, and the fire and the elements, and also Soma, the Somras, right? The elixir, the purpose of life is to find that and all that. And there were all indications that Somras was an intoxicant, and now there's been scientific evidence that it was a cocktail of psilocybin and cannabis,
Mm.
which was made. And then there were wars fought over for like territory wars fought over the Amrit, where the
Mm.
Devas and the Asuras fought for the churning of the Amrit, and then that
Mm.
was the first drug war, possibly. You never know.
Wow.
And then the Ahuras started Judaism. The Ahuras were Jewish, like early Jewish, and then Zoroastrians, and then Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all came from that. Whereas the others, the Devas, the Hinduism and the Buddhism and Jainism, and all of that came from that. So myth making and religion comes from a state of an ancient word called yeshiva,
Mm,
Yeshiva,
mm,
which just meant to dwell on, which means
right.
that they would just meet and dwell upon it. So if
Mm,
you look at the oldest temples, right, Göbekli Tepe or whatever, you would find the arrangement in sync with the stars and the galaxies and the constellations and all, where you get the best view of it.
mm,
And they would congregate one time in a month and have that experience of the celestial show, and that was the
mm,
first movie for them.
mhm,
So they started imagining characters out of like different constellations. There's a sun god, there's a moon god, and there was different wars that were fought. And slowly through the evolution of the chants, because they were chanting them, right? Vedas were being
mm,
chanted. We
mm,
could see that they had started giving them human forms.
mm.
The
Yeah.
sun and the moon, and then the god suddenly started having human forms.
Mm,
And ancestors started being called devas, which means that ancestors became like gods and all that, right?
right.
So, and what kind of stories do they say? Now, let's cut back to Ramayana and Mahabharata, where there's more evidence of what really happened, right? Like the myths, that
Yeah.
is, like it's
Yeah.
not evidence because it's not history as popular as believed.
Well, Ramayana is
It's
called
mythology, but if we look
Itihasa.
at,
It is called
yeah,
history.
but it's actually mythology. It's
Arguable, but let's go. Let's
incorrectly being
go.
called history right now, but the origin of it comes from mythology because there's a person who has written it, right?
Mm, mm,
And now, what happens when, as with anything that's written, is that it's written by people with either a social awakening or like agendas or like a mix of two, or also possibly under what they've been smoking or drinking and partaking at that point of time.
true, true.
So all myths, at some level, are the story of humanity, even if they are in a fantastical form.
Yeah.
So Ramayana, if you look at what it's trying to say, and what is the version that's become popular,
Mm,
you'd be surprised, right? Like, where does Ramayana end?
mm,
Does
yeah.
Ramayana end when Ram kills Ravana, or does Ramayana end when Sita commits suicide?
Mm, mm,
Right?
yeah.
The story is a tragedy,
Oh, it
but that's an
is.
art house film nobody wants to see.
No, you're right.
So the popular form, as popularized by Ramcharitmanas in I think 1578 or something. I'm very bad with dates, but I roughly remember the period. Right?
Yeah.
Was something like 50 years after Babri Masjid was built. To give you a historical
Right.
perspective, Babri Masjid stood there before Ramcharitmanas was even written,
Right. Right.
almost 48 to 50 years before that.
Oh,
And so
wow.
the mainstream form, the Ramcharitmanas, is the happy ending version of it.
All right.
The happy
Wait
ending
there.
version of it stands for all the good things that defines the hero, the
Mm,
Ram as the ideal version of man,
mm.
and even the ideal version of man doubts his wife, which is kind of
Exactly.
problematic if you look at it.
Yeah, and then we have Krishna who had many girlfriends. If we're talking more in a human form, it's either the player or the guy who's
Yeah.
going to doubt you, and they're the gods to base our heroes on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think humanity has always needed these heroes. We need someone to look up to. Like, if we have to cut back to, like the time when when they just used to do yeshiva, sitting in the oldest temple and looking at the stars and entertaining each other with the stories, or if we want to go further back in time, where the early man stood around, like sat around campfire, enacting out how his day was when he escaped the tiger, or how he. So David Mamet says that stories are what unite the tribe.
Mm, mm.
So what is that
Yeah.
experience that unite the tribe? The common experience, right, of survival, of
Mm,
hope. We survived the day,
mm. Yeah.
which is why stories have tried to be hope centric. And when you try to make stories hope centric, then you tend to whitewash a lot of things which the hero has done, even if they are problematic.
Yeah.
And that's
I
what's
would agree
happened
with
with
that. Yeah. And
all
you've
the
kind of,
heroes, no matter which culture you take,
yeah. I think,
because stories are hope centric, and because we need hope, we need a chance of redemption for the man.
hmm. Yeah. I think like especially I feel in the 1980s films, which is when I started to kind of, really take in movies. There was this idea of this traumatized hero. who then becomes the most wonderful person on earth. And although he kills people, he
Mhm.
protects and whatever. And there was always this idea of the woman kind of submitting to this man as well. Like she would always be this, like when she's westernized and free and, dancing by herself and her friends, she was evil and she would slap him and she's terrible. But then the minute she becomes serious with this guy, she wears a sari and says yes to everything and starts crying. And that's becomes this woman as well. What are your thoughts on this sort of portrayal?
I think as long as stories are written by men, women would always be poorly written.
Mm.
Um, Men wouldn't be able to do justice to characters that are women because they know so little about women. They don't know what makes a woman happy. They don't know how to pleasure a woman in bed. Indian
Mm.
men are so clueless that Indian women have had to wait till their late 40s to get their first orgasm through a sex toy. That's how bad it has been, right?
Yeah.
So, because we don't have female storytellers, men will continue to write their fantasies out on screen, and that's what's been happening. Be it in the West, where like a Marilyn Monroe happened as a pure fantasy of men.
It is. Yeah, it was a lot
When the
of
sisters said you
objectification.
can't show cleavage, then they were trying to show. Then it became about artistic expression and said, no, we want to show, like, who are you to censor us? We want to show more cleavage. And then they started playing with the whole censorship rules. And Marilyn
Mm.
Monroe was born because you couldn't show breasts, but you could still be within the censorship rules and still titillate. And that's how Marilyn Monroe was born.
Yeah.
In Indian screen, it's been the same. And also, we have to remember that movies have been a mirror to society, and Indian society has been conservative AF, right? Has
Mm.
been conservative, really conservative. So girls were getting married as early as 17, 18. If you watch a 1979 Manmohan Desai movie, you'll find a heroine who's 17 or 18 years old, and the hero tells her that it's time for you to get married. You're 17 or 18. If you
Mm.
watched an Amitabh Bachchan film with Rekha in the 80s, you'd have a song which says that now you're 18 years old, you're ready to
Mm.
be married, so that's been Indian society for the longest time, where of men and women have played a certain roles, and movies have only tried to portray that on screen, trying to push the limit, but how much can they do? Because if you
Mm.
try to push it too much, then it stops being relatable, and then it's not commercial cinema anymore. So
Mm.
then, if society saw a modern girl who smoked and drank as the vamp, then she had to be the vamp. But
Mm.
Helen was the most empowered woman we saw on screen. The way
We
she
did.
danced unabashedly, the way she
Mm.
celebrated the music and danced and was so uninhibited about her body, she was a joy and delight to watch,
Mm.
right? So there was some amount of subversion that was happening that I see, which is also like at some level I think Helen was a feminist because
I
she made the
feel.
most of a given opportunity and shone, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
she celebrated the dance form as she knew it, and she gave people joy, and she perfected the art of the cabaret on Indian screens.
Yeah. And do you think, like, in terms of well, feminism to me is about pure choice. So if I choose to cover up, that's my choice, not, I shouldn't be forced
Absolutely.
to do otherwise. And if I choose to take my clothes off, that's again my choice, and I shouldn't be forced to or expected things.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of, it's literally for me, feminism is all about this idea of choice. How much choice do you think women have today in Indian cinema, in terms of their portrayal?
I think plenty. I think sex positivity has a lot to do with it.
Mm.
Because there's no taboo associated with kissing on screen anymore. There's no taboo associated with like doing a bikini scene anymore. Because if you look at the Instagram reels, it's all bikinis. It's all
Mm.
bikinis. It's all like hot women all around. It's all filters, life with filters, a glamorous way of life. So because of filters and all that, the human body is not as like wow, I've never
Taboo.
seen that before kind of thing anymore. It's very normalized right now, and that's helped a lot of women to say, hey, that's totally fine. Like I'm comfortable with my body.
Mm.
I'm very proud of my body. I worked so hard to work on this body. If I can get
Mm.
15 crores to do a bikini scene, I'll do it. Let me do it.
Mm. Yeah.
So I don't think women are forced to do these things today anymore. I'm
Hmm.
sure that was the case even about 30, 40 years ago when sex positivity wasn't there. But thanks to sex positivity, thanks to feminism, there is a lot that women are doing by their own choice, and hence men are not able to exploit them for it anymore. I'm sure it still happens at some level, but thankfully we've had these Me Too movements around the world that have kept men in check.
Mm.
Was it fair? That's debatable, but because now there were no principles of evidence in play anymore. It was operating on the principles of hearsay and gossip. So yes,
Yeah.
there might have been a lot of casualties, but I think it was overall, if we have to look at the impact, it was a very necessary thing for a course correction of
Mm.
gender politics in Indian cinema
What do you think about
and world.
objectification though? Because I do feel like when I watch movies even till date, I do feel, especially with the mass heroes, there is still that objectification happening. They still use a woman like a handbag. She's there to look pretty. She's there to look,
Yeah,
it's for the male gaze. It's not for, we don't enjoy it as much as the men would, I suppose. I mean, unless I was obviously inclined that way, which I'm
yeah.
not. Um, but yeah, like I still feel like that's happening, and that's still the 400 crore movies, the 500 crore movies, the big movies. They're still doing that. So is there a dominance in terms of perspective?
Again, like how back do we want to go, right? Like because we look at the 90s.
Mm,
I want to go back to the 90s because we can go beyond that, but let's look at the immediate thing.
mm,
If you look at what happened in the 90s liberalization, and we had like foreign television coming in, like Star TV coming in, like Z was in India and all that. And so Z was playing a lot of Bachchan movies.
mm,
Bachchan movies had stopped flopping, stopped working at the box office, but Bachchan was on TV screens thanks to Z.
mm,
For nearly 8 years after his movie stopped working, he was alive on Indian screens through television. People were watching Bachchan on TV. So even if his big movies were not working, they were available on TV. What happened with the proliferation of television sets and entertainment options is that women started getting hooked onto soap content, soap opera content, and they wouldn't step out of home.
mm,
They would be happy watching the television set and getting their entertainment from the television set, watching a soap.
mm.
And men would go out to watch movies. So when movies became essentially something which men would do, then the Dil, Dul, Gilly, those kind of movies become popular because it was about Sarak and it was about male bonding. It
Kutti.
was about following some
Yeah.
figure and like teasing
Yeah.
her and all that.
Yeah.
That became the mainstream form because women were not going to the movies and men were the target audience for
Right.
movies. Now,
Yeah.
if you look at what happened in like post 2000s, like late 2000s, when Gajini happened, and
Mm,
Amir Khan said, "This is what a male body needs to be look like."
mm,
Because it was not just Kareena Kapoor doing size zero; it was also Amir Khan bulking up and doing that.
mm,
And suddenly, Shahid Kapoor with his baby fat was not working.
mm,
Shahid Kapoor had to chisel up, get rid of his baby fat, his double chin.
mm,
All the heroes had to like suddenly work on fitness because
mm.
now if you're not fit, you're not made for the movies. Because now
Yeah.
movies are not being watched just by men, but they also watched by women.
Mm.
And if you want to be attractive to women, then you have to look like Amir. You have to need the six pack. You need even Shah Rukh.
All right. So
All
we
right.
were back in the 90s, right? And you were saying
No, no, no.
that. Wait,
We are not
wait.
back in the
Let me
90s.
give
We
me
are
70. Let me give you a summary because you know what I do with Shastram? I use Indian classical dance to understand the history of India. Okay, and the narrative of India. And that's what I have been doing. So, all this information you're giving me is definitely adding to that storyline in my head. Okay, so what I heard is, and correct me if I'm wrong here now, India was this country which did its own thing, and then white man came along, and he pretty much said that these things are going to be censored, and all the sensuality of that country was taken away and boxed up somewhere. And then from there, we got independence. But obviously, with that whole independence, now we've been ruled for 200 years. I say we because my ancestors are partly from India as well. Now we are trained the white man way and the Victorian way, and we want to present ourselves to the rest of the world in a certain way, which is accepted by the colonial rule worldwide. right? So, including Indian classical dance, this is exactly what happened there as well, because there used to be this tradition of the hereditary artists who used to perform in the temples, and we all know what the sculptures looked like. We all knew that temples were places of discussion of all sort parts of life, sensuality being a huge aspect of it, of just relationships. This was the country that created the Kama Sutra. So from there to, now presenting as nuns pretty much, on screen and so forth. Then we came to 1980s and then we came to 1990s. Now the woman is currently being placed inside the home because of all of that conditioning that happened over the centuries, right? Then there is the teledramas, where it is feminism within certain limitations. Widescreen, silver screen cinema became something for men. I think that's where we kind of left off. Am I right in that story?
That's in the mid 90s when TV content exploded, really. The
Mm,
soap content exploded, television sets exploded because there were a variety of channels, and women were just happy watching their stories, the variety of fare available on television for a few years. So they didn't go
mm,
to the movie screens for a really long time. That's why we had a lot of male centric movies that happened back then. And I'm talking about the South here, like
mm.
for Tamil cinema.
Um,
The journey for Hindi cinema was a little different, though. What happened with liberalization for Hindi cinema is that it went westwards. It said that, Indians are going abroad. Let's expand the market. Let's take Indian movies to the world. And hence the hero changed to a patriot NRI, a non-resident Indian,
mm,
Dilwale Dulhania, Pardees, that kind of type. So there was a lot of pop patriotism that took off in the mid 90s for Hindi cinema. Whereas the southern cinema, what happened is it became more male centric. So every cinema had its own path. But
mm,
essentially, what I think is cinema um, is a mirror to what our society and the changes to it. And cinema is also counterculture. So if you look
mm,
at the cinema of the 50s, it was against the feudal landlords because because of the divides between the rich and the poor. So someone had to save the poor.
mm,
Saving the poor became the thing. Like a reason why like an MGR became big is because the poor did not have a voice even in independent India, and hence a messiah was needed.
mm,
So from the mythological form, it became the savior, right? Like
mm,
from the mythological hero, it became a social hero, someone who wears the same uniform as the people. He
mm,
could be a farmer, he could be a coolie or an auto driver and all that, and that's the template which future heroes also started following, like a Rajnikant followed by a Vijay, followed by so the social hero who's like one among the common man who stands up for them was
mm,
part of counterculture because now cinema is reacting to issues in society.
mm,
It's reacting to like how did the angry young man come about in the 1970s? Because
mm,
Amitabh Bachchan was a counter reaction or was a counterculture reaction to the emergency. To like he was writer Salim Javed were speaking for the common people
mm,
when they created an anti-establishment angry young man type, right?
mm,
And
mm.
people cheered for that type because he was fighting for them. So a
Yeah.
hero became the person who was fighting for people's issues largely in the
Mm,
mainstream format.
mm. Yeah.
So when it becomes about hero worship, then there tends to be, and also the like I said, men were making these movies, so it became male fantasy movies. It
Mm.
started telling women that this is a hero, and like it started reinforcing a lot of the patriarchal notions and values. So, which is
Yeah.
why it took a
Mannan
Malika
being a
Sharawat.
classic example of that. You know that movie Mannan when you
Yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah. A
Rajini
lot of
movie
those
Mannan?
90s movies,
It's
but
like,
like I said, you can't blame them because women were not going to the movies, and hence movies were made for an audience. Movies are always made for a certain audience.
mm,
You make a certain kind of a movie for someone, and they'll all come to watch it. If you alienate them, they're not going to come and watch it.
mm.
So again, what is Manan? Manan is Taming of the Shrew. Shakespeare wrote it like a long, much
Correct.
before this
Shakespeare
happened,
wrote
right?
it. Exactly.
So it's
Exactly my
not
point.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's male writers. It's
It's
not.
male
It's
writers,
about
and
male
it's a very
writers.
fossilized idea. I'll tell you where this kind of plays into, say, someone like me, who grew up in Australia, and you knew me from God knows how long, right? And
Yeah.
I feel I have liberated myself so much in the past, say, 20 years. But I was brought up like a woman, a girl from a village, like my parents. It was a very fossilization of culture, and the culture that was portrayed in
Yeah.
cinema was the culture that, like the long hair, wasn't allowed to cut my hair, wasn't allowed to go here, wasn't allowed to do this, wasn't allowed to speak up. So all these sorts
Yeah.
of ideas. So how does that, go back into this idea of self-love? You really feel oppressed. How do you love yourself when you feel oppressed? You don't, especially when you're trying to conform and people please, and this is what you're conditioned to do as a person. And I think, like, yeah, cinema tend to really instill. First of all, I thought that is how you're supposed to be. This idea of this is what a woman is supposed to be. Because
Yeah, like I
yes,
said, it's a young people thing. We get influenced very easily by stuff we watch without
yeah,
understanding that that necessarily might not be a life truth, without understanding the historical context and the cultural context that it's mostly been an art form written and written and developed by men over like 100 plus years. That it's
yeah,
only off late that we've been seeing female storytellers
yeah, coming
exploring,
forward.
female desire, female agency. These are all relatively new concepts to Indian cinema that's happened over the last 15, 20 years in the mainstream format. We've
Correct.
always had these sort of art house filmmakers making these stories and telling these stories to a small section of the population. It probably goes to film festivals, gets a lot of critical acclaim, all that is there, but it's not consumed by the mainstream form because it's considered boring and it's actually preaching to the choir, right? Like you're
Mm.
already telling people who know all these issues exist that it makes no difference.
It's
If
it's
you
it's
really want to make a difference,
cinema for, I think, how cinema works in different places. For example, living overseas, cinema was a cultural Bible for us.
Mhm.
Like how I learned Tamil, and it was Morgan who picked this up, right? When we were first speaking to each other, they go, all of you Tamils like Maniratnam dialogues. What's going on? The way he spoke, it's like the delivery of a Maniratnam dialogue. And I'm like, that's when it hit me. I'm learning Tamil and I'm learning how to speak and the culture from cinema, like to the point where I didn't even understand. It was
Yeah,
a conditioning that
that
was
was the problem, wasn't it?
happening. It was a huge problem. It was a massive problem.
Some
But I'm
babies were
saying,
dropped on the
like,
head, and you were dropped on cinema.
I still remember, like, my most life-changing and life-altering elements, influences are cinema. It started with Kadalovium, a Bharati Raja film, and then it went Shankarabharanam, and this is how a woman should be, this is how a man, this is culture, this is what is good, this is what is bad. So all of these ideas of what a human being should be, a woman should be, has come to me or passed on to me through cinema and even language. How beautiful it is. My parents watch a lot of old cinema, and even dance for me, a huge part of it came from cinema, especially when you're removed from the home country. This has happened. I've noticed this happening especially overseas. So, places like Canada and England and Germany and France, where Tamils live, in Australia, we follow culture based on how cinema portrays it. So for me, it's been like a full 360-degree, research of what our culture truly is. But initially, and even till date, I still see it happening in Canada and stuff, this hero worship and this idea of this is what a woman should be and this is how, she should live and a Tamil woman should be and things like that. That still is happening. That conditioning is still happening. Whereas I think for India, it's a form of escapism. For us as well, it's a form of escapism, but it's also a form of connection to the home country or home culture. Love, the idea of love, like definitely Bollywood has, 90s Bollywood has still has a huge influence in upon a lot of us who are looking for that cultural experience and love. Like Kyo Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, or what is, I can't even say that, DDLJ, is it? Dilwale Dulhania.
Dilwale
That one.
Dulhania.
Yeah, so those are like your classic films that this is what, we want. We're waiting for this guy to come and sweep us away, or, this guy who's traumatized. Like I was literally looking for a traumatized person to love because that's what I kept seeing in all the Rajini films and there's this dude who's like really harsh and angry and being tortured imagine, little did I know that, this person would have a lot of trauma and relationships later on. There's a film called Bad Girl that's been out and was censored. Your thoughts on that?
You spoke about like three different things all right. The first thing was nostalgia.
Oh.
Nostalgia for the homeland, right? Like
Mm.
I have friends whose parents have moved to the US in say 1978,
Mm.
and they've raised their kids with the same values from 1978 till date
Correct. Correct.
because they live in a bubble. They've moved away from home. They don't know how much India has changed because they left home that long ago. They believe that India is what it was when it was in 1978.
Yes.
In the 90s, when Bollywood was making these movies, they were like, we want to reach out to that population that's left India. And they started making these movies to say that it's okay even if you live abroad. What matters is the values that you carry in your heart, the Indian values,
Mm.
that a Hindustani ladka will not do this to a Hindustani girl. Like as Shah Rukh tells Kajal in Dilwale Dulhania when they spend the night and she
Mm.
wonders if they had sex because her clothes are changed. Basically, the Hindustani ladka has only changed her clothes, but he's not slept with her, and that's why
Yeah.
he's a nice guy. He did not rape
Yeah.
a
Without her
girl when she was
permission,
drunk.
which is good. Which is good. Like without her permission.
A hero
Consent.
is someone who did not take
Yeah.
advantage of a girl when she was drunk
Yeah.
in
Good on
Dilwale
him.
Dulhania, right?
Yeah.
Again, there's male fantasy playing out. There's lots of things that are happening there, but essentially, it's a product. And
Mm.
what's the nature of a product? A product is something that is sold, and it gets sold only if we want to buy it. So
Yeah.
let's not forget that we want to buy it part of it. It's
Mm.
working because we want that from the movies. We want that escapism. We want that fantasy from the movies. And it just happens that those fantasies are also problematic because they inherit the patriarchal constructs, but they're still fantasies, right? They're still telling, like, if you look at Dilwale Dulhania, it's still trying to say, it's addressing that NRI population where the girl is forbidden from leaving her Indian roots, and hence the guy she's in love with has to convince the whole family. He has to win over the whole family to get the girl, and that's the crux of Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge.
Mm.
So, which means that it was negotiating between two generations.
Mm.
I love you, dad, but I also love him, but I won't marry him without your permission. And hence the guy
Mm.
comes and gets the permission, and there's a negotiation that's happening culturally
Mm.
which worked for the older generation and the younger generation, and it was a good product. That's all it was. It
Mm.
was a good product, and
Mm.
that good product became the template for Bollywood, and defined what romance was through Shah Rukh Khan, who was like this guy who was this
Yeah.
unconditional, sort of a lover. So Shah Rukh Khan and the shaping of the Indian male romantic hero has a lot to do with expectations women have from, like, what how men should be and how men should behave and all that. And he's sort of that persona of the unconditional sort of a lover, like that he shaped through like multiple movies. I'm sure there's a thesis waiting to be written on the evolution of the romantic hero through Shah Rukh Khan, right? Like because
Mm.
of what he did, how he did, like continuing to the tradition of him saying that the women will be named before him in the movies,
Mm. Mm.
the credits wise, right?
Yeah.
So there have been changes that have been happening in the mainstream format in a very small way. Over the last 20 years, Bollywood has made more feminist movies than ever. One of the highest grossing movie, which even created a franchise,
Mm.
is called Stree, which means a woman. Though it was written by two men like Raj and DK, great friends of mine, but they believed in the female characters that they wrote, and
Mm.
they wrote a female centric horror film that worked, and now today has spawned a whole franchise, right?
Yeah.
So as long as we write female oriented stories, as long as we um, address those stories. Now what's also happened is that because one film works, then there are hundreds trees being made,
Mm.
100 feminism film are being made where a woman is just a guy, like basically she's doing all the guy things, she's smoking, she's drinking, she's doing pretty much everything that a guy did, because that started being perceived as feminism. Of course that is feminist too, because whether a girl
It's
wants
just
to
an
smoke or drink, why should
activity
it?
which men
It's
took
just an
to that,
activity, right? It's a
yeah,
personal choice.
which women weren't
It
allowed
would be
to
a
about.
problem if all feminists in the movie are smoking, but
Yeah,
it's totally fine if one girl smokes, one does not, one hates it. There could be different sort of women, and we want to see
exactly.
that representation on
Correct.
screen, right?
Yeah.
Like if we look at how Hollywood did it, there was Sex and the City, which was by Darren Star,
Mm,
um, and which defined what chick flick or feminism was for a whole generation. But that was
mm,
problematic AF as well, because
mm.
we've seen more liberal, progressive films made even before '99 when Sex and the City happened.
Of
I
course.
remember Reality Bites, written by a 22, 23, 22-year-old Helen Childress,
Mm. Yeah, I remember
wrote
Reality
Reality
Bites.
Bites.
Yeah, I remember that
Okay,
movie. Yeah.
directed by these guys called Ben Stiller and Ethan Hawke, who didn't know each other. Like Ethan Hawke is who's this Ben Stiller, and Ben Stiller is like who's Ethan Hawke.
Oh,
But they're all
wow.
doing it because they like their friend Winona Ryder, and Winona Ryder is doing it because she likes the script. It's written by her friend who's 21, 22 years old, and they
Yeah.
make that movie. They make such a fresh movie,
Yeah, they
which is
did.
actually representative of what it is to be a girl in the
Yeah.
mid 90s, way before Sex and the City, and it's so much more progressive. And we
Mm.
celebrated Sex and the City thinking that that is what female agency looks like until Girls came over. You know, Lena Dunham makes Girls, and she really roasted Sex and the City with that one.
I
She
didn't
showed
see
us
that
that,
one. Okay.
oh, it is like the best. Like it's the best
I'll watch
chick
it.
flick show ever. Girls by Lena Dunham. She's also made Too Much, which is a follow up to that.
Mm.
The recent show Too Much.
Oh, she did
So
that. I
basically,
love Too Much. I really enjoyed
so
Too Much.
basically, what she does is she roasts Sex and the City in Girls by
Yeah.
saying that if you thought women's lives revolve around a man, the biggest problem for a woman is to find a man. You thought wrong. The
Yeah.
biggest problem in girls is girls.
Yeah. No, I
It's about
think the
the female
biggest
friendship.
problem in human beings is just accepting themselves. It's really hard.
No, no, but we're talking about chick flicks specifically. We're not going broad.
Yeah.
We're talking about chick flicks. So we're
But
talking
with
about chick
chicks,
show
like,
content.
yeah, so
We're talking about.
go
So
on.
when Sex and the City is the dominant narrative, it takes a Lena Dunham to come and say, "Hey, that's not me. I have body issues. I'm not like that, and I get made fun of all the time." And what do you mean? You have to be look like one of these rich white women to be a feminist? That's not true. So she created a more exciting mix of female characters where the issues in girls were not about finding a man. If you
Mm,
look at the chick flick, it's responsible. The
mm,
chick flick is such a, I know it's comfort food for women, but it's a very problematic genre because it breaks down men into two types. One is the goofball and the other is the fuckboy. And the woman
yeah,
wants both because she's messed up. She's just a little girl. She does not know what she wants. So she falls, she messes up, she makes mistakes. And then ultimately both the fuckboy and the goofball come for her and she forgives them and gets to pick which one she wants. This is such
yeah,
a childish idea of what a woman wants, that
100%.
she wants a man.
There's the
She
idea, sorry,
wants a
the
football or a
term
fuckboy.
chick
It's such a
flick,
college idea of a girl's desire,
yeah, but
right?
also the term chick flick itself is quite cringe-worthy for me personally to say that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is,
you
but
know,
that's what
yeah.
it's called.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you see How to Be Single?
how to be single? Yeah, I did.
I loved that film for what it was. It wasn't about, chasing after anyone or anything, but just being alone, like to be
Yeah,
at peace, which is kind of
yeah,
for
yeah,
me, it's a universal story for me. That could be a chick flick, but it is also just a human story. It would have
yeah.
still worked. I really did enjoy that film. Sorry, you were saying, go on. I interrupted.
So if you watch Girls, you would see that the primary problem, Girls was so relatable, and it's I think one of the best feminist shows I've ever watched,
Mm,
because not only were the men characters written really well, they were
mm,
messed up, they were as complex as the women were, they were
feelings.
far from perfect, and they were
Mm,
so real. And so were the women were
mm,
real, the women were twisted, the women were messed up. But more than anything, the biggest problem for girls in that show was female friendships.
mm.
It's about the relationship they share with other
Women.
women.
Mm.
That is such an underrated, underexplored part of the female narrative, because
It
most
is.
female narratives are about finding a man, and that's so problematic. It's so problematic. In fact, a lot of girls are messed up because of that kind of content that they watch. They reduce men to two kinds of men, the goofball or the
Mm.
fuckboy, and that's all. They don't see men beyond these two types.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is
So,
a portrayal that's popularly executed 100%. Yep.
yeah, Yeah, but it's comfort food. I get it. Like how men watch sex comedies, women watch this. That's all it is. But
Yeah.
let's get it. That's exactly what it is. It's a guilty
Mm,
pleasure. It's a highly problematic thing. It's if men watch American Pie or Road Trip or
mm,
Hangover, you
mm.
girls watch Bridget Jones or Sex in the City, right?
Yeah.
Both are guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
Both are
I enjoy
problematic.
both, I'll be
It's not
honest.
just because.
I enjoy watching
Pardon?
both. I enjoy
Yeah,
watching
yeah,
both
I
equally.
do too. I do too. But when we're talking about cinema as a life truth, or when we're talking
Yeah.
about the larger conversation we were having about cinema defining life truths or our relationship with romance and love, that is the thing, you know. So
Yeah.
um, that was the second part of your question. I think the third part you were getting into bad girl when I stopped you.
Correct. So, Bad Girl is what I ended asking you about, and the censorship, because there was a film prior to that, which, I think you told me to watch it as well, and I had already just seen it called Queen. Like, oh hey, this
Okay.
is your story. It's been made, and you sent it across to me, or you messaged me about it. I still
Oh,
remember
okay.
that. But that was about liberation of a person who was literally just,
Yeah,
within a certain cultural construct as well. Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Queen's a
and
great film.
it was a really fun film to watch. Like, and I loved that film. Bad Girl, which I haven't had the opportunity to see. There has been a lot of censorship around that, especially in Tamil Nadu, where again, this whole idea of how can a woman be portrayed this way? Your thoughts on this?
So the Indian censor board is a very weird beast. Okay, so there are like five members who watch a movie
Mm,
during the censorship process,
mm,
of which the rules say that one is the regional officer and four
yeah,
members, a
yeah.
regional officer plus four members. Now the rules say that of the four members, 50% should be women.
Mm,
So there are two women and three men. Most cases, if the RO is not a man, if is not a man, then it's probably three women. But in most cases, it's three men and two women who watch it.
mm.
Now, if those women in the committee find it problematic, then they're going to flag it.
Right.
So the problem is deeper.
Mm,
If these two women have a problem, they're going to flag it because they have the opportunity and they have the option to say, hey, no, that's totally cool. It doesn't show women in bad light. But they are entrusted with a responsibility to not show women in bad light.
mm,
So it's like if a woman's drinking, don't do that. It's showing women in bad light. Women are not like that. That's not how women behave.
mm,
So it's coming from a moralistic sort of a thing. But I think all these things are change is very slow in this sort of a system. It will take
mm.
us a while before there is a larger change where like even the women in the censorship screening are able to say, hey, this is cool, we should let this be, this is how it is today.
Yeah, and also
Unfortunately,
the other
that's why I
things
think
are,
cinema is a mirror.
yeah, cinema is a
Cinema
mirror,
is a
but I
mirror
don't.
to the
I
society.
feel it's a very awkward mirror. It's like only showing certain parts of women at least. And in terms of say like let's take Cooley for instance.
I
Like
don't
I
think so.
saw
I think
you.
India. I think the bigger picture is ugly. I think the bigger picture is ugly.
Oh, it is ugly. I mean, look, life is ugly and it is what it is, right? I'm not saying everyone I like I was speaking to Morgan, we're all sinners, we're all doing, we're all here trying to do what we can or live this life, whatever it is. But sometimes,
Yeah,
yes, I do like art in reflecting society a little bit clearer, to be honest, and fairer. But it doesn't tend to do that because of what we hold in terms of culture and structure and all that jazz. But, I guess I have issues with things like this because, like you were saying in your Cooley review, which I saw on your podcast, it's like representing Rajnikant, and all he can do is smoke that cigarette in a certain way and, take a drink and hit people and whatever. And that's okay. That's moral. But when a woman wants to do it, it's immoral. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, that's kind of definitely an issue for me. Also, I feel like, and yeah, I guess your response to these ideas that I'm just throwing out, I feel like a lot of men that are portrayed have issues, would be narcissistic in real life. If they existed in real life, these people who are portrayed as heroes would have, what do you think? You're nodding.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, no,
Yeah.
they are absolutely. These are extremely narcissistic types who
Yeah.
want to be presented in like bottom angle, like a godlike figure. Like you look at the iconography of it, it's all like trying to present them like a god.
Yeah.
That's the principle of the hero worship, right? The
Mm.
framing, the lensing, all of it tries to do that, which is why we need more voices in cinema, which is why we need more voices to tell us exciting stories and not make these points like a school teacher,
Correct.
right? Like the
Yeah.
problem is all the critics, all of us, including myself,
Mm.
we sound like strict school teachers, and they're just boys who want to have fun.
Mm.
And nobody likes the school teacher
Mm.
because they know these are just boys who are having fun. Why don't you just have a drink and go watch it? Is would be the response. So the only way to make a change, if you want to do it, is that if you're going to the boys' club, you have to find a language um, that is going to connect with them. You're going to find a story that is going to connect with them. If you want
Mm.
to make a dance club movie, then it's going to be a certain way. If you're going to make a bar crawl movie, it's going to be end up like The Hangover. If you're going to make a Dude Where's My Car movie, it's going to end up like that. If you're going to make a hero centric film, it's going to be end up like that.
Mm.
So it depends on what kind of stories we choose to tell. But with what's happening with Cooley and the big celebration is, how do you condense storytelling to 20 frames or 20 seconds or 15 seconds to 20 seconds? How do you tell a story in 15 seconds to 20 seconds?
Mm.
If you were to tell a story in 15 to 20 seconds, how can you do it? Now,
Mm.
you can't tell that story with a lot of detail because you have only 10 to 20 seconds. So what do? You use a symbol which people already know so that they know, oh, it's a cat, so we know what a cat would do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you have a baby, oh, a baby, you know what it would do. You put
Yeah.
Rajni, oh, I know what Rajni would do.
Yeah.
So basically, the idea is to create these moments which make for good reels.
Mm.
So if you can give them 15, 20 seconds of exhilaration
Mm.
or elevation, which can be consumed over reels, if the reels can go popular, then that means that has a longer shelf life as a movie and as pop culture and for word of mouth and all that. So when
Mm.
you start reverse engineering it, then you're going to say, okay, I need these high points in my film, which can make for good reel materials. So what's happening is that because we're trying to condense information,
Mm.
we're not doing it really well. And there are people who are doing it really well too. Like you look at when Star Wars returned with J.J. Abrams,
Mm.
it came back at a much faster pace. It
Mm.
came back with the shortest scenes ever. Scenes
Mm.
were like getting over in 15 seconds, 20 seconds because the pace was just hectic.
Mm.
And that was, we didn't notice it because it was good writing there. Like we were just on that ride and it was exhilarating. And that's what we're not able
Mm.
to do that in India yet because
Yeah.
we are still caught up on, that whistle worthy moment. And what's also problematic is as audiences start consuming content a certain way, by which I mean like this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
then you
This
really
is
have to
where.
have them.
Yeah. I know.
So
I
what
get it.
happens is Netflix in the pandemic changed how we consume movies
Mm.
because everyone was at home. We never went to the movies, and
That's
we were
right.
watching content on Netflix. We were doing ambient viewing because how long can we just keep watching stuff, right? So we
Mm.
would be on the phone, we would be watching, and our culture of watching stories became like a secondary activity. The TV screen became the secondary activity, and the phone became the primary screen.
Mm.
Or
Yeah.
worst case scenario, the other way. But
Mm.
the fact that the secondary screen exists is a problem in the way of a story.
Yes.
So how do you tell stories then? Then you have to tell stories without detail, where the details don't matter, where you're already familiar. Like Lokesh Kanakraj didn't feel the need to tell us who Rajnikant is because he knows
We know.
what's his punchline. Punchline is what?
நான் ஒரு தடவை
என்ன
சொன்னாவா.
இன்னுமா தெரியல is his punchline,
ஓ
right?
அப்படியா? சாரி, நான் இன்னும் பார்க்கல அந்த
That's his
படம்.
punchline.
ஆ.
How does a 3 minute monologue in that film end?
Mm.
The punchline of that is, don't you still know me? Do you really need me to say this bloody monologue? Or do you still need a flashback sequence? You know this. You've
Oh.
seen it like for 50 years. So Lokesh
Oh.
Kanakraj has made a
Intertextuality.
film. What?
He's fully relying on intertextuality to tell the film.
It is because it's 50 years of Rajnikant. Like
Oh
he's
wow.
done everything and like everything. Like who is Shruti Hassan's mom? It's a
Uh,
photograph of
uh,
Shobana from Dalapati.
oh, are you?
Never
Uh,
mind that his name is not Surya but Devraj, which is Mammootty's character, which makes
uh,
for a weird thing. Like so, Devraj played by
கடவுளே.
Rajnikant, married to Shobana.
Uh,
Be consistent to your fanboyism. You know, it's not even
yeah.
consistent to that. Like
Oh
there's not
wow.
even so much thought that's gotten into staying um, true to characters. If you want to stay true to character, let it be Surya.
Exactly
Like why
right.
is it Devraj?
I think
Right?
copyright
So
issues.
what about this now? You're still using the
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that's been the problem.
Yeah.
The algo has only made it worse now because the algo is informing Netflix and the OTT platforms that you need to begin with a climax and then
Mm,
have multiple climaxes and end with a cliffhanger so that people are ready for more. They come
correct.
back for
I
more.
know. That's
So the
really
nature of
problematic.
stories has changed from sitting around the campfire and sharing what happened that day with your tribe to making it sensational, making it exciting, making it like extra dramatic
Hooks.
with multiple twists. And
A
so
lot of
stories are evolving so much that textbooks are getting irrelevant these
mm.
days.
Literally that whole play for me still in mass Tamil cinema is the narcissist and the empath relationship glorified and also bringing in that mythology of this god as well, you know, bringing those sentiments as well. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
sad, but it is what it is. I think, like I said, growing up overseas and watching these films and being heavily influenced by these films, because I was one of those, I love movies, you know, and especially the 90s, 80s films actually. That whole Maniratnam, you know. But I feel Maniratnam did give at least a little bit of a voice to the women in his
Yeah,
films.
when he was making good movies. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
like Mauna Ragam and stuff.
Like
I
when
really
he's making
feel
movies
the
where a girl is raped and he doesn't show the scene as a rape scene.
எந்த
In
படம்?
Thug Life, Trisha has a beachside scene with Simbu, which is so cringe because it's treated like a VTV scene.
Oh
It's
dear.
the scene where Trisha shares with Simbu in Thug Life.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sorry. I've sorry to say that film I
The
didn't watch
contents of that
fully.
scene, the contents of that scene, it's shown as a romantic scene between
Mm,
Simbu and Trisha, but the contents of that scene are not just cringe because it's treated like a love story and a romance. It's
mm,
cringe because of what she just told him. She
yeah,
told him, "You are an animal who mauled me
yeah.
without, like, who coerced me and mauled me. You're a beast." She's
Mm,
talking about rape there. She's
mm,
talking about this guy coercing her into sex, which
mm.
is the definition of rape.
Right. Yeah.
A rape scene being shown as a romantic scene, but it's such a sad thing that we don't even know when a rape scene comes and happens. We don't even look at it as a rape scene anymore
Mm. This
because it's
brings
a
to
gangster film.
mind I think I always had a problem with this film, but I could never express it. There was a Parthiban film with Sita, I believe, where he rapes her and then she comes and marries him or pursues
Oh, there
him.
have been many such films like Pujya
Like is
Pale, where Parthiban's debut is he rapes the girl and then he marries her is the big social change. No,
Ama,
bro, that's not social change. You're
that's messed
basically
up.
marrying your
Yeah,
victim and giving her like a lifetime sentence, life
exactly.
sentence of the same treatment. That's horrible. That's every girl's nightmare. So
Mm,
yeah, Indian cinema was regressive. It still continues to be in like many ways, but that's because the society is regressive. The
mm,
change, it's like chicken and egg. Till like society
correct.
changes, we won't be able to see it. We need more women storytellers making movies out there, and we need these women storytellers to be making movies for everybody and not just the women.
Correct.
You have to
Correct.
make
No,
films for an
100%.
audience.
Yes, you do. You
So
have to
when
make
you're
them
trying to
audience.
make a film for everybody, you have to remember the rules of the product. Give them what they want, but say
Mm,
what you want to say.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
What if you compromise what you want to say, then you're a sellout. But
Mm,
if you give them what you want, but also manage to find a way to say what you want to say, that's the right way to do it. And that's the only way for change that I see. But
yeah.
otherwise, this relationship that we were talking about, pop culture influencing the way we look at um, love, romance, relationships, it's it's a young people idea essentially.
Mm,
Um, personally, if I have to think about, my idols, like You Complete Me, Jerry Maguire, right? And the
Yeah,
idea that we need someone to complete us.
complete us, which is terrible. Yeah.
Um, you complete us. It came from like Cameron Crowe for me. So in my movie Culture Vulture, I got Cameron Crowe to actually. I put him in the corner and I told him, now let's be honest, let's be real, and let's talk about today.
Yeah.
How real is this thing?
Yeah.
And I got him to answer it, and that forms the climax portion of my film. The closing
Right.
monologue of my retro love trilogy, Culture Vulture, is actually written by Cameron Crowe, and he will answer whether You Complete Me is true today or not.
Right.
But to give you a part of the answer, because I think it's important to the discussion that we're having, because he's done it in a couple of movies. In Say Anything, there's a song where he holds the boombox, right?
Mm. Mm.
And the song has the lyrics, "In your eyes, I feel complete." You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so obviously the idea is very close to him. Whether in the boombox scene or in Jerry Maguire, where they say "You complete me," and in the lift they see a couple doing this mime language, and
Mm.
then they translate it. He said, "You complete me," which is set up and later used as "You complete me" in the end. So the idea of You Complete Me, where did you get it, is one of the things I asked him to answer through my movie as part
Mm.
of the closing monologues of my film.
Yeah.
And without getting into the details of that answer, because you have to watch my film to know
Of
the
course,
real answer,
100%, which I'll share
but
the
where
link.
he got it was, so Joni Mitchell wrote this song when she was 29 years old, when she just started songwriting.
Mm.
And that's a young person feeling to feel that. Cameron Crowe, this was 1974, and Cameron Crowe was 16 years old when he heard this.
Right.
Again, a young person buying a young person thought. So when I watched Jerry Maguire, like in like 2000s, I was a young person who watched it. So it's basically young people relating to young people thoughts and thinking that, yeah, if this person felt it, maybe we get some sort of validation to it. But that's all
Mm.
it is. It's a young person thought. And that's
Yeah.
not Cameron Crowe's answer. That's just mine. His
Yeah.
answer is very different.
No, and it's really interesting though that young people are very influential, and yeah, you go on goose chases because love is not portrayed in a certain way. We don't have that kind of how you should, maybe nowadays because of social media there is a lot more guidance on what a relationship should be and what humans should be acting like, etc. But I feel back in our day we didn't have
Yeah.
that. But yeah, look, thanks so much for all of that information. I feel like you validated a lot of these thoughts that were running in my head, to be honest. Especially about Tamil cinema
Yeah.
and all these constructs and stuff. Yeah, thank you. Was there
Yeah,
anything you
please
wanted to add?
watch more independent cinema where a lot of your things are addressed.
Yes, definitely, and especially your films. Did you want to add anything to
Because
this
mainstream is
conversation?
not, yeah. No, because mainstream is not where you're going to find those stories. Mainstream
Mm,
is always going to tell you the stories of our society and is going to show you the mirror as ugly as it is. If you
mm,
really want stories which are counterculture, you have to watch the counterculture filmmakers.
mm,
You have to watch out for independent voices. You have to watch out for not just me, but like other people like me who are trying to break ground and who are trying to challenge existing narratives.
mm.
We have to encourage more kinds of films from female voices, and that too in the mainstream, because we have enough female voices, but they are all preaching to the choir. They're
Mm.
making art house movies, which is not going to make any difference. For real change, we need to talk to a large section of the people, and I believe that the best way to do that is through the language of comedy.
Yeah.
So it's not that there is no way to do it. The
Mm.
most complex themes have been managed, have been communicated through comedy. So I'm pretty sure that it is possible to do it. It's not rocket science. If you
Mm.
use the language of comedy, we will be able to tell the most complex stories in the most simple way.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
all I have to add on. Yeah,
Thank you so, so very much for that.
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, and I really
It was
appreciate
wonderful
how you,
chatting about all of this.
yeah.
I've discussed a lot of this in my movies. So if you like this kind of conversation, please tune into my conversation movies. I made a retro love trilogy with three films: Good Night, Good Morning, Side A, Side B, and Culture Vulture. There goes my plug.
Amazing. Thank you. And I will share your playlist as well in this so people can access it.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Sudhish.
Thank
Take
you.
care of yourself. We'll be in
Thank
touch.
you so much.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you for a lovely